man.
Welcome to the first episode of Shot of Nostalgia, where we will dive back in the history of wrestling and fully immerse ourselves in a timeline. We are starting the journey, 1996 WCW, and we will relive one of the greatest years to be a wrestling fan. As always, I'm Stephen Acefield, the ace of the tavern, and I am joined by fellow time-traveling pal, Mike Belcaster.
What's up, Ace? Man, thank you for the beautiful intro. Thank you for everything going down. What a goddamn good experience this is going to be. I feel it. I'm in 1996. I don't know how you feel, but we're here. Bush or Clinton's our president. We're having a good time.
It was a rough go in the DeLorean, but we're here. But first things first, guys. Let's take care of some housekeeping as we always do. Make sure to like and subscribe to the Turnbuckle Tavern. We continue to give out hours of free content. So your reviews go a long way. And like Mike Belcaster and I say all the time, send us a screenshot of you reviewing 5 stars. We will send you stickers. I got Acefield Retro stickers. Mike Belcaster has some Turnbuckle Tavern stickers, whatever it takes. Also, some stickers for days. Some merch. Stickers for days. We'll put them in the mail for free. It comes right to your door. Make sure you guys follow our live streaming schedule. Monday, we have the fucking GCW show. A lot of GCW stuff going on this weekend. I'll be on Monday. Surprise, surprise. You'll see Mike Belcaster and myself doing the GCW show on Monday. We have Tuesday Fig Night. You'll find Mike Belcaster again. You have those frauds on the Raw Down. Wednesday for the AEW wrap up with, again, Mike Belcaster. And Thursday, the Honor Society with your Raw Down champ, Stephen Acefield, the Ace.
And possibly Mike Belcaster.
He might be on all of them.
Listen,
moral story, guys, support the stuff. Support the show.
You were gathering the rings of the tavern, and secretly I'm coming behind you and gathering those rings as well, my friend.
Are we going to have a Jon Stewart, Ric Flair moment with John Cena where you're going to all of a sudden cut me off so I couldn't get past you at SummerSlam?
I love it. I'm here for it. We'll make it work.
All right, guys, let's get right into it. Today we're going to be reviewing the January 1st and January 8th episode of WCW NITRO. Each week, we will be reviewing 2 episodes of Nitro or including a pay-per-view when they come up. So Mike Belcaster and I have freshly watched these 2 episodes, so we have a lot to talk about. And let me just say, truly a goddamn shot of nostalgia. What a fun ride these 2 episodes were.
100%. You know what's even cooler is like I sent you the screen cap when I was laying down watching Nitro the other day. Not only what a blast from the past, but what a amazing just piece of pro wrestling in general. Like we're watching 5-star matches nonstop right now. That's wild to me. That's absolutely crazy to me.
Yeah. And so you guys can get along with the schedule and follow along and watch along with us and be prepared for next Friday. So we will be reviewing January 15th and January 22nd. Next week for episode 2. I'll remind you at the end to get you guys going. The first pay-per-view we will be reviewing is in February, so we'll let you know when that comes up. I believe it'll be episode 4 because I scheduled them out.
I'm excited.
So our champions as we start this journey, Mike Belcaster, do you have any idea? Do you remember who our champions are aside from the ones that appeared on Nitro so far?
Shit. What do we have? We have Hulk Hogan. Am I wrong?
You are wrong, correct?
I am wrong. Ric Flair. Ric Flair is the champion.
Ric Flair is our champ.
Thank you. There we go. There's a lot of back and forth. Refresh me. Tag team champions.
We have Harlem Heat are our tag team champions,
as they should be.
We have Sasaki, who I'm not familiar with his work. He is the U.S. champion. He holds it for a bit in the beginning of this year, but then loses to One Man Gang. And I want to talk to you about that when we get to it. There was a lot of drama when I was going through the dirt sheet about One Man Gang not being acknowledged as a U.S. champion. So,
do
you remember that happening?
I do. I absolutely do.
All right. So we'll get into that when we get to the part. And we have Johnny B. Bad, former Mark Merrow, as our TV champion. So those are the champions as we start our journey, guys. So close your eyes, take a shot of Pepsi Blue, whatever.
Tell me you did not tell me that the Mark will be bad is our champion, man. Booker T would be not having it.
So going forward, guys, we're going to have bumpers and stuff. And the great Chad of Two Bad Chads are creating a lot of good content for us. You guys see the amazing Shot of Nostalgia background, the logo and all that. So we will have bumpers and stuff to support these little segments, because as we grow and as the show goes on, we're going to obviously continue to adapt and see how it flows. But the first segment I have is called Happy Hour. And what's better than Happy Hour? We're going to talk about the news in all of January 1996 across WCW. And there are, oh my God, dude, so much news to get into. Yes. Are there stories that you remember just like being important in 1996? I know it blurs together and I have them written in front of me, but.
No, for sure. A lot of ramblings, especially being a kid. I was merely 9 years old and all this was going down. But I do remember it. I remember feeling like, oh shit, something big is on the spectrum here. We didn't know what was going on. And I probably got my first Gateway computer. If you remember the Gateway brand.
Dude, yeah. The cow. You got the cow print.
Yeah, and it was the computer for the household. So it wasn't like exclusively in my bedroom where I could look up news reports every night. I was sitting here every day on it from after school until bedtime, trying to figure out what was going on in the world of pro wrestling. And what a wild time it was for anybody. I mean, myself, you obviously, Ace, and like we're just, yeah, you see, my mom knows she's the color-coded Gateway. She gets AOL streaming, man. We didn't have that much back then. We were working on dial tone, which was, it's a completely different time. But I do remember some ramblings going on, and I'm so happy to be here reliving it.
Yeah, so 1996, I mean, if you go back, I believe if Twitter existed, if Reddit existed, if all these social media platforms existed, wrestling world would have blown up because so much was going on. And like we look at our daily stories in wrestling and every day something new happens and it moves so fast. But just looking at January 1996, I went through 3 newsletters by Dave Meltzer, which is such a great time capsule of wrestling history because
amazing.
You can go back and watch the old events. You can go back and listen to whatever, shoot interviews, but he was writing whether you respect what he does or not, or like his opinion or not. He was a journalist at that time, not just writing his opinion, but documenting history. And it's so important to go back now. So I'm going to go through some of these stories that I want you to just comment on, whatever comes to your brain.
100%.
So he mentioned, I mean, WCW was a powerhouse coming into 1996 on the heels of 1995. He mentions that the key factors in the U.S. Would be the commitment that Turner had to WCW as a product, because it was still sort of new to have wrestling on a big stage and a platform like Monday Night. And Monday Night Nitro, as we review this, I believe it's the 19th episode of Nitro altogether, so it's in its infancy. So 1995, at the end of it, is when we saw the birth of Nitro. So we are really seeing the emergence of the Monday Night Wars, and goddamn, like January, it's off to a absolute torrid start. We had the biggest story ending in 1995 was just the changes that were going on in both companies. So do you remember shots being taken on live TV about WCW, about WWF, and do you remember reacting to them?
Monday Night Quill, brother. Yeah, I remember it so damn much. Asinine is the proper term to think about it, because WWE or WWF at the time thought that, your Macho Mans, your Hogans were not going to be a draw. And they kind of let them lead their own way to the path of going to WCW. So we got that coming from the WWE end, but we also got these guys kind of reinventing themselves, making themselves a big deal. You know what I mean, man? I'm telling you right now, Acefield, the Macho Man Randy Savage was not ready to step down from being the cream of the crop. So that's,
dude, it's crazy to even think about some of these guys. And you look at the newsletter, they're talking about the 1996 Royal Rumble. Not that we're talking about WWF, but he mentions the ages of the returning Ultimate Warrior, who was 38 at the time. The returning Jake the Snake, 40 at the time. We have wrestlers now today that they're bringing back that are well beyond that.
Yeah.
And expected to work a full schedule. They were looked at as geriatric, that they did not want him on the roster. They designated Macho Man to the announce desk to the point where they didn't think he could go anymore. And at the time, now you're thinking about it, he would still be in the prime of his career.
Yeah. I mean, look at Cody Rhodes. How old is Cody right now? He's got to be like 37, 38.
I got the Google machine right here. I mean, he's got to be 37 years old.
He's a young guy, right? So you got Macho Man, who's the same age, but they just bring back Cody Rhodes, who's this iconic person, and yes, he is. Of course, he is. But how can you put the Macho Man to pasture at this young age? You know, Ric Flair wrestled until he was 65 easily.
And the one thing, dude, that came up in the notes was very interesting because of how appropriate it is today. The Fox network had expressed interest in its own late night weekly wrestling show for 1996 in the fall. Who knew how many years later, 25 years later, they'd be getting back involved with wrestling and having SmackDown on Fox. And maybe the wrestling world would be different if Fox got involved all that many years ago.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean,
so crazy.
I was a Fox kid when I was younger. I would watch X-Men, Simpsons, All in the Family, or not All in the Family. What the fuck? God damn it!
Family Guy. Family Guy.
No, not Family Guy. Family Guy wasn't even around in '96. The Al Borland putting his hand.
Oh, Home Improvement.
No. Did I say?
Oh, Married with Children.
Married with Children. Thank you.
I got you.
But yes, that was. Listen, everybody was all Fox because it was a little bit vulgar, a little bit fun, a little bit different, and not a lot of TV channels were doing that back in the day.
Yeah, and the options to watch things were limited. You like the thing is, we had, the staple channels, and if you weren't on a TV channel, you obviously didn't exist. Now the whole landscape has changed, and it's ever changing. We're talking about Ring of Honor getting a potential streaming deal and being fully immersed on whatever streaming platform they decide to go to. And then even you talk about the NFL, they signed a huge deal with Amazon Prime, and they're going to be involved on streaming platforms. Like it's just wild to think how far removed we are from 1996 now, but it changed the landscape. Maybe WCW could have survived if they didn't go out, if they just would have lasted a couple more years past 01.
No, listen, if we had streaming channels back then, it was going to be ABC and what's it called? Fox and NBC. Like that's all you got. We didn't have much back then. We at most had Nickelodeon, MTV. Like there was you had to have a black box to get these things too. I remember watching a plethora of pay-per-views on a black box just because it was hard times, Danny, as Dustin Rhodes would say, you know.
Oh yeah. So WCW had a big advantage going on cable as its weekend shows were already murdering WWF shows. And Monday was fairly even. So the weekend show was doing well. WWF historically never has done well on the weekend aside from pay-per-views as far as television weekly shows. They at the time, Meltzer had said WWF had a slight syndication advantage, but in overall viewership, WCW had more shows, more stations, more exposure, to the point where WWF felt like they were in trouble on shaky ground, Meltzer said. It's weird to think about the super conglomerate that became publicly traded WWE on shaky ground, on their heels by Ted Turner and the boys.
Well, you know what? They had I don't want to say it was a limited roster back then, but they had a lot of new stars because they put Macho Man and Hulk Hogan out to pasture so early that it was built on these 1, 2, 3 kids, Diesels, Razor Ramones, and nothing against these gentlemen, but it's hard to build a company off of that without having that history built into it. So you're talking like you can't do ECW without a Terry Funk. You can't do a WCW without a Dustin Rhodes. You can't do WWF without a Bret Hart. And Bret Hart wasn't a spring chicken at the day, but he was still somebody that was been there. You know what I mean? So like you have to build up on these things to make a long-term storytelling relevant to your fan base, to people
Jericho
looking...
and AEW. Jericho and AEW is the same thing. Like you need that guy to think about, because if you have just a whole bunch of great young talent, that's fine, but you have to have something to build legitimacy to your championships. And Hogan did that for WCW. I mean, WCW was long lasting prior, but as far as Ted Turner WCW goes, Hogan gave it legitimacy following his departure from WWF. I think we all could agree on that.
Yeah, no, listen, Ric Flair could have been the WCW champ 1,000 times before Hogan or after Hogan, but Hogan was the guy that brought that to the mainstream spectrum. And even what was Thunder in Paradise, you know, they made a WCW show built off of that. WCW Thunder every Thursday night. It was based off of that shitty show Hulk Hogan had called Thunder in Paradise, but it was part of it. You know, he gave it that mainstream appeal, and he gave it that it factor. You know.
Absolutely. And I have some notes about Thunder in Paradise as we go on because it had something to do with Nitro. And yes. I think it's fascinating. So just want to move on in the news too. We have Missy Hyatt's lawsuit against Turner Broadcasting. WCW and Eric Bischoff legally concluded, which is a nice term for settled out of court. Do you have any memory of this Missy Hyatt thing going on in the news?
I do. It was strange at the time. Again, being a little kid, wasn't paying too much attention to it, but I was like, wow. Like people are suing the big company for whatever reason it was, but it was just like something was off.
She claimed unequal pay, sexual harassment, and wrongful termination when she was fired in early 1994.
That's crazy. And but imagine how that would have went over in this day and age.
Right.
You know, that it would have been a squash lawsuit that she would have gotten her benefits, her pay, everything would have been done. She revolutionized how you should handle an after contract termination, you know.
Workplace misconduct. And that was a 22-month ordeal that was looming over WCW, and I'm sure everyone was happy to get it over with. And you're right, it would have been, maybe this could have been something that damaged the company much worse if this lived in a time where you had more than just a newspaper and more than just the exposure. So
cancel culture would have killed it. I guarantee it. You know, it would have been it would have been Missy Hyatt for life, and hashtag Missy Hyatt high agency or whatever you want to call it. So it would have been crazy.
The other stuff in the news, we had the weekend ending on December 10th, which the ratings come in sporadically throughout time. So WCW barely beat WWF in overall viewership, 6.2 to a 6.0. Just to show you how close they were at this time before WCW blew past them later in 96. And we will hopefully get to that by the time we get to Bash at the Beach and everything that happens following that. But WCW treading water here, WWF doing the same and like slipping a little bit. If you were watching WWF time, which I was as a kid, I liked it because I was a 7-year-old, but it was, I mean, go back and watch. It doesn't hold up as well as it probably should have. I mean, the talent is there, but it was a lot of character-based things, and WCW was just starting to move towards the reality portion of their programming.
Yeah, it was a lot of that, but it was also like you had to have characters that we cared about, and I felt like there was a lot of lack of that. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't like how am I as a 7-year-old supposed to get Doink the Clown? How am I supposed to understand the Brooklyn Brawler? You know what I mean? Like I was just like, who the fuck are these guys?
Right.
And like I loved it, but at the same time, I was like, you know, it was an interesting point in time. But like on WCW's end, we had like the William Regals, we had, or sorry, Lord Steven Regal. We had
with
a lot
Jeeves, by the way, with Jeeves.
But we had a lot of natural base characters that kind of felt this more to home as it would have been outside of it. It was a weird time for wrestling in general. I don't think it was just our age group. I just think it was like,
it alienated a lot of people that love the old school wrestling. The fans that were our age at that time hated it probably altogether. They were looking for something much different. Yeah. And the crazy part is, like today with New Japan and going to watch GCW tonight, you didn't have the access to it. You had to just kind of grin and bear. You want to watch wrestling? This is what you have. So
you had to buy the Wrestling Observer in hope that we got a good amount of news out of it. And like there was a lot of shit. Like I remember one of the first times I heard about Chris Benoit was from the Wrestling Observer, and I was like, oh, I got to keep my eyes on this guy. Yeah. And then like we seen his build in WCW and then eventually WWE, and it was like obviously the long-term storyline, and that sucks, but he was amazing to watch grow. And you know, like we got that from the Observer, we got that from, you know, any a Wrestling Illustrated. Fuck, man, like it was a crazy time. You had to go buy magazines to figure out what was going on. We did not get news source emails back then.
So a big name that kept coming up throughout the newsletter for like the first few weeks of January was Public Enemy. So there was a bidding war, believe it or not, over Public Enemy between WCW and WWF. Ted was throwing at the time the figure that is $85,000 per year. McMahon said WCW won't have a clue how to market them since he never went to WWF. So therefore, WCW won't be able to steal how WWF got them over. He also complained that WCW chose to put a wrestling show on Monday nights, claiming they showed no regard to wrestling fans of America, and said Bischoff is carrying out the greedy, selfish vitriol of billionaire Ted. He also knocked Hogan, saying he was selfish and a shallow human being. He believes he can con wrestling fans into thinking how great he was years ago. This was all on an audio interview on the radio that he did, hyping up, talking about whatever event was coming to town. Someone really dug their toes in to ask him about WCW, and he went off. So,
well, listen,
can you imagine him saying that about Tony Khan today?
But how familiar does it sound? He might not be saying it, but a lot of people are.
Yeah.
And you know what? Listen, when FTR was signed to AEW, there was a lot of, oh, he's not going to know how to book that. And we kind of agreed with it until this recent month. You know, we're seeing FTR on this biggest build ever. And not saying that they're a Public Enemy, because they're way above and beyond what Public Enemy was, but there's a coincidence of it. There's a very
there's a lot of parallels to be drawn for sure.
Thank you. That's what I'm saying before. But
he also
but
went on to talk about the Andre stuff, how he was mad that they were portraying Paul White as Andre's son. He went off, didn't pull any punches when talking about Turner. And the biggest thing he kept talking about was, and this is a direct quote, when was the last time they did a legitimate steroid test? And like, is that the pot calling the kettle black right now, dude?
100%. But you know what? You as a child, hearing that Paul White was Andre's kid, I fucking loved it. I fell in love with it because I was coming off of my brother's fandom, and he grew out of wrestling, but he went into music. But I remember him playing with his Andre the Giant and Ultimate Warrior toys, and I was like, yes, I love this. And then like we see Paul White, who comes out, he's, well, it's the Giant, and we're like, yes, I'm here for it, man. I love that they booked them like that, and I wish they would do that more often with characters. You know, like to say FTR is Bobby Eaton's kids or something. You know what I mean? Like, don't shy away from it. They love and respect the art. Let's make it happen, man.
Yeah, like everything they're doing with Braun Breaker right now in NXT. It's like, what are they like? He's a Steiner. He looks like a Steiner, dressed like a Steiner. He's a Steiner. Why not just use it?
Just absolutely put him in the fucking wrestling earbuffs. Like, let's do it.
And the other funny part that they kept mentioning is McMahon was saying that he's pushing washed up, untalented headliners because their name could still draw money. It's like, could he be talking to himself today where you're having, and I love Stone Cold, but you need Stone Cold to come out of retirement. You need Goldberg to come out. You need Triple H to wrestle matches before he couldn't. Taker was still wrestling matches. Like, yeah. I mean, all these years later, he's exactly what he hated in 1996.
Listen, pal, it's good business, all right? I can't agree with you more. I thought they did the Stone Cold thing in a more tasteful manner because it's been so long. You know what I mean? Like it was like we had 17 fucking years without it, 19 years, whatever it is. The Stone Cold comes back, and it was basically a commercial for his new beer line, but it was fun, and it was I had a good time watching it. But if say Undertaker came back for this Mania, I would have been like, he's retired 6 times. I don't want to see it anymore. There's a leeway there. You know what I mean?
I got a question for you, Mike Belcaster. I just did the math on my calculator. All right, so say it's the year is 1996, because it is. We went back in time.
We're here.
And someone at WrestleMania said, Bruno Sammartino's coming out of retirement. How would you feel as a fan? Like, people would have laughed at it.
Yeah.
In 96. That's the difference. 1977 was 19 years ago. So if Bruno came out in 96 and was like, I want the title. Not that Austin's wrestling for the title, but that is exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. 19 years is 19 years.
Yeah. Man, that's a deep cut, brother. But at the same time, I get it, but I feel like Bruno would have been able to deliver as much as Stone Cold did.
Fair enough, but let's move on to the next news story. On 12/15/1995, we had Medusa tossing the WWF Women's Championship in the garbage can, that now famous act that pretty much sunk her wrestling career. you know, there was a lot, and Dave Meltzer went off on her in the thing saying that Vince gave her his trust and gave her the title, and she or anyone doing something like that are slime. Do you feel that way? I felt like it was like the unofficial start of the Monday Night Wars to me.
I thought it was the greatest shit ever because we finally seen somebody step up. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't like, oh well, I'm just gonna. They didn't put black tape on the title where it was covering up logos. We're like, you know, it wasn't manufactured. It was so present and real at the time, where you were like, oh my goodness, like this is going down. Yeah, I'm here for it, and like I felt like I was here for it.
Yeah, people act like, you know, mentioning the other company on TV is the wrong thing to do. It's been happening since the beginning of time and since network TV's been around. Mentioning WWE on AEW television.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been done before. So people get all upset like, oh, stay in your lane. WWF and WCW are all doing that as well. So
100%.
Just a conversation and continue to have, because it's just hypocritical to say you don't enjoy it because you all wax poetic about the Attitude Era, right?
Well, that's like when Jericho comes out, he's like, I'm the sports entertainer. Like, are you going to get upset about it? Or are you going to enjoy the ride that we're on and let him do his fucking thing? And like, that's my stance in pro wrestling in general, is I will never be the guy that's like, this is stupid, this is dumb. I will always enjoy the ride I'm on until it fucks up on its own. And when it does, okay, fair enough. Now we have time for criticism, but enjoy it while we got it. Like Hangman and Paige and Adam Cole was a big deal. You know, everybody was like, oh, Adam Cole needs to take the belt off of him, blah, blah, blah. No, I don't care. If Adam Cole wins the belt, cool. Let it happen. But just sit back and enjoy the ride that these people that know what they're doing, they're taking you on. Same thing like when Macho Man was fighting fucking Steamboat for the Intercontinental title. You know, you just gotta sit back and enjoy it. Don't hurt yourself overthinking it. Just embrace the product as it is and have a good time listening to it and watching it and enjoying what you're experiencing in this moment.
I completely agree with you. 100%. I think you said it perfectly. Also of note here, after Starrcade 1995, which was on the 27th of December, WCW reinstated blading, with Flair bleeding heavily with the finish of the match with Savage. So I'm not sure if you remember there was no bleeding or blood at all in WCW.
Yeah.
But just interesting to note, it was a reaction to Bret Hart bleeding on a WWF pay-per-view only 10 days earlier. That's what they had noted.
I will say good for them, because they did the right move. But at the same time, I have no recollection of them not blading. So that might have been something that persuaded me to watching. I don't know.
Yeah.
I was like 7 years old.
So the other thing of note, and you mentioned Hogan before,
Brother,
just to show how far he was dipping in popularity, and that the heel turn was what really saved WCW and his career. They were passing out on the January 1st Nitro episode. Before the show, they were passing out Hogan merchandise to the fans near ringside. There was a Hogan look-like fan that they paid to be there. He's a guy originally from Detroit who moved from Atlanta, called himself Roddy Hogan, was moved around by WCW officials several times before the show as they wanted him in position to be on camera as much as possible. This is just an insight into how, I mean, we'll talk about the main event on the second night of the second Nitro we talk about.
Yeah.
But how unpopular Hogan is at the time, the Hulkamania stuff, it's just not getting over with the 1996 crowd.
As a fan in that time, I remember being over it as well. But as a fan now, looking back at it, I think it was the greatest move on their part.
It makes sense. You have a large monetary investment in this man. So, yeah. And at the
both
time,
companies,
you have to just like try to squeeze what's left in it and make people believe that he's still popular. But yeah, who knows? And we'll get to the NWO stuff. We'll have plenty of time to talk about it. So I don't
absolutely, but like look at the figures behind you. Hulk Hogan was one of the many that only had a few extra Hasbros. Not a lot of people did.
Yeah.
Hulk Hogan was all over the place. Hulk Hogan was a god in his time, and I think that like you can't have the pro wrestling we have now without the transition of Hogan going from WWF to WCW to becoming the NWO. And again, we'll get to the NWO spot, but I think there's a lot. It's a loaded bullet. It's not a soft shell. It's something that is really well thought out. And I think everybody that was involved in the transitioning of it did a great job at it. But I think that we wouldn't be here right now doing this without Hogan going from WWF to WCW.
100%.
Yeah.
So the other thing of note in the news here, this was the start of Eric Bischoff giving results of the taped Raws.
Jesus Christ.
In 1996. So early in the first show that we talked about, and I want to just get the notes out of the way because I want to just talk strictly match quality and results.
Yes.
So early in the show, Bischoff gave away that the Smoking Guns won the Raw Bowl and it wasn't any good, then called it the Toilet Bowl. And then McMichael started going on about how it being in the Kitty Cat League after a sign was aired on Raw, that WWF was where the bigger boys play. He responded with WCW was where the biggest boys play. So a lot of petty bullshit going on between both companies by the guys who are running the ship. It's not even just like talent doing it. It's the head honchos that are just taking pot shots at each other.
Well, I would have called Mongo a head honcho, but I understand.
Well, I'm talking Bischoff though.
Bischoff for sure.
What do you mean? Michael's calling the shots, bro. Come on.
Yeah. Listen, there was a lot of heat there. They had to get themselves over, and I don't know, man. I feel like WWE wasn't performing the way they should have been at the time. So I kind of fell into that boat where I was like, Bischoff's right. Fuck these guys. And I was here for the WCW product, and we'll get more into that as we discuss the matches.
Yeah, so week. I'm sure you were a big fan of this then too. WWF did a skit on Raw where they had guys dressed as Ted Turner, Bill Shaw, Harvey Schiller, in Billionaire Ted's wrestling war room, and a very old skinny guy dressed to be Hogan, and a guy dressed to be Savage, complaining how they need more action in their matches, and showed clips of Ramon, Michaels, Diesel, etc. And then they showed Hogan and Savage's face cringing. It's now famous now skit that they now show on these Monday Night Wars documentaries. Did you see this live in WWF? What was your reaction to this? Did you like, oh, they're right, Hogan's just an old guy? Or did you?
I didn't know how to feel because I was young and I was like, Hogan's my hero. It's like calling Superman cripple, and like that's not a joke because Christopher Reeves. The full-blown spectrum of Superman. You can't Superman, Batman, Spider-Man. You can't say that they're getting old and out of touch because you believe in the character, right? So like you go back to these days and you're like, yeah, Hogan's my guy. Hogan has always been my guy. Macho Man, always been my guy. I don't know how to feel about it. I didn't care about Razor Ramon or Scott Hall until they eventually made that jump. That's what really solidified them. Like, I love the characters, but when they officially came out, it was like, yo, we're here to do this with this. And like, again, not trying to give away the future of the WCW broadcasting, but I felt like that's where I really fell in love with them. And it wasn't with WWF at the time. And I grew up on Hogan, Warrior, Macho Man, Roddy Piper. Those are the guys. So you see them on WCW, you're like, this is where I'm going. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. So the thing is, too, one thing I highlighted, which was fascinating to me, because obviously this is from January 96. This is writing from Dave Meltzer at that time. Yeah. He wrote, even those in WCW, the one thing that should comfort everyone that doesn't like the name calling is they should realize that if Hogan or Savage were to call Vince tomorrow, they'd be on top there the next day. And that someday, if, in big capital IF, if WWF survives, Hogan and Savage will be back there and they'll all be best friends again. We know how it plays out. It took Savage so many years to get back into the good graces, but just the fact that we're talking about WCW as the powerhouse they were, we're threatening the livelihood of even WWF existing in the future. That's what we're dealing with, everybody. Wow. You need to realize, like, no one talks about WWE going out of business because of AEW. At the time, WCW was threatening to put them under, get rid of RIP WWF.
Yeah. So I feel like vice versa too. WWF was on their way to be like, fuck you guys. We're putting you out of business. But as you said with the Macho Man thing, when did Macho Man get his Legends deal? It was like 2015.
Yeah,
It was
merchandise
not
in the Hall of Fame. Yeah.
Yeah, that was not. It was not a week. You know, it was 15, 20 years. That's crazy.
Yeah. Ultimately,
And
Dave was right, but it took much
yeah,
longer than he probably even could have anticipated.
yeah. No, I'm telling you, obviously, I'm a figure guy. The last birthday present my dad bought me before he sadly passed away was a Macho Man Ultimate Edition. And like thinking about that, that's wild that we did not have. We had this whole classic superstars line. We had all these different iterations of legends, you know, with the WWE product, but like Macho Man didn't come along until 7 years ago, right? Like that's
Mm-hmm.
wild to think about, man. Absolutely wild.
Absolutely. It's just crazy to think about in a world. This world was completely different than the one we're living in. And like, if something
Yeah.
changed, like the butterfly effect, we may be living in a world where Ted Turner has a network and Ted Turner is taking shots at an upstart WWE, you know, like a guy that wants to be basing their company on old WWE instead of AEW basing on the TBS era.
Imagine waiting 15 years for a Stone Cold figure to come out.
Yeah.
Wild.
It's insane. So also during this week, we had some heat between guys I never knew had heat. Ricky Steamboat and Gene Okerlund.
Oh God. Yeah.
So did you remember this going on?
I do remember this going on.
So on this week, Gene Okerlund was on a hotline talking about the Omni show and saying that instead of saying it was rumored that Steamboat would be honored by WCW, he said it was going to happen. Steamboat's lawyer came out and said he's not going to be on the show. He's not being mentioned, to the point where they had a lawsuit being brought up between Steamboat and Gene Okerlund.
Wild.
Yeah, crazy. I mean, it was squashed, but it was interesting. Like, Ricky Steamboat was so upset that anyone would say he was appearing. Maybe he wanted to keep in the good graces of getting back in WWE, or maybe I'm not sure what the heat was.
Maybe he was trying to keep the element of kayfabe.
Yeah,
you know, it could have been anything. But like, listen, you got me, Gene Okerlund, talking about Ricky the Dragon Steamboat here. It's wild to think that there'd be a lawsuit involved.
Crazy. So I just wanted to mention that. And the final thing on our news is WCW is likely to headline the January 23rd Clash of Champions in Las Vegas with the Monster Maniacs against Ric Flair and the Giant.
Wow.
And then they also had interest in bringing in WCW, that is pronouns pal, the Rock and Roll Express. So the Young Guns Rock and Roll Express were looking to get back in the business. Ultimately, I don't think they brought them in the late 90s.
I don't think they did either.
So, and Ricky Morton and Gibson are still going at it today. I actually just saw them about a month ago in a local brewery, and they killed it. They wrestled the Ascension. So,
how fucking wild is it that we're talking about 1996? We're in 2022, and Rock and Roll Express is still rolling. I one of the first few indie shows I worked, they were on the card. And I was like, you guys are fucking legends. And like, they sat down next to me. They were watching the rest of the cards. They're like, who's the face? Who's the heel, baby? I was like, I don't know. And he goes, that's the problem, man. Like, they got wrestling, you know, they're so in tune with it, coming from their time. Love the Rock and Roll Express. Love everything about it.
Absolutely. Very, very nice guys, down to earth guys. I did get the time to talk with them. It was such a great event that I went to, and they worked the show and they were just as good as ever. So pretty awesome.
Rick Morton, Bobby Eaton, legends, man. Absolute legend.
So that will do it for our happy hour segment. So hopefully next week we will have bumpers and all the beautiful graphics to go with it. But hope you have a buzz going, because now it's time to get you fixed. We're going to talk about WCW.
Yeah, brother.
January 1st Nitro. And I'm going to put the scroll here just like the old school thing here. We're going to put the scroll with the full results.
Oh, I love it.
We got them coming in.
Absolutely love this. This is beautiful, and like it surprised me.
So before we get into the results, and we'll go back and forth and talk about them. And guys, please do your homework and watch these events so you can participate in the comments and talk about what you liked about these shows and what you didn't like.
Yeah.
So for January 1st, this obviously was the first show of the new year, being that in fact it is the first day of the year. Monday Nitro was from the Omni in Atlanta. 6,000 fans with 3,619 paying, a total gate of 42,840. That's probably more noteworthy than what was done on the card. The other thing, Nitro and WCW are trying to build a bridge out of the country, specifically in Germany. And the WCW announcing team includes a 16-year-old boy who doesn't know anything about wrestling nor care about it. He was the son of producer Dieter Krapp, who I don't know or familiar with that guy. On the first show, he spent half the time talking about basketball.
Yeah.
Two of the other announcers, Peter William, who is co-owner of CWA with Otto Wands, and Nick Helt are doing a gimmick feud during the show, with William doing a gimmick pretending to be drunk on air. So not the best start to the German appearance for WCW.
No, obviously, lots of stereotypical shit going on. Given for the 90s, though, that's what everybody was doing. But I listen, looking back and watching it, I thought it held up very well. I thought we got there were some dream matches on there, including Hogan versus Ric Flair. We got Macho Man. We had William Regal fighting Chris Benoit on that first episode. Holy shit. And that stole the show for me, because it was like, oh, I like in retrospect, watching it then, I was like, who the fuck are these guys? But watching it now, I'm like, I know the history between everybody. I'm like, wow, it's huge that Steven Regal fights Chris Benoit in a stellar match. We got Sting and Lex Luger fighting the Super Assassins, the Warlord, and the Barbarian. This is shit we could book in GCW right now and everybody would buy into it.
Oh, hell yeah. So let's go with the opening match. Randy Savage pinned Arn Anderson at 6 minutes and 55 seconds after hitting Anderson with Anderson's own foreign object with the I believe his breast knucks out of the tights, and he actually kindly put the breast knucks back in Arn Anderson's tights.
Yeah.
So thought that was
what
awesome.
A weird spot. Like it didn't even look like brass knuckles. It looked like a tape roll that was bent in the brass knuckles. And like the first, and this is the most possibly the most weird conversation that we're gonna have tonight, but it looked like Arn came out with a Glock. I was like, what is he doing? Like, what is this? Like, I almost texted one of my wrestling friends. I was like, how hard is it to like hide the excitement when you're going to the ring?
Oh my god.
but it, like we seen it was a foreign object, and it was, but it was a good, I felt like it was a good match. It was fun. Very interesting. Sam's the man. We love Sam. But I thought it was fun. I thought it was interesting. I enjoyed it. I had no quirks with this whole fucking week of Nitro, man.
Yeah, for sure. I think it was an awesome match that reintroduced us into WCW, and seeing Randy wrestle, and especially a legend like Arn Anderson. I don't think it went long enough. It definitely felt like with WCW, like kind of with Raw is now, it's filled with a whole bunch of 5-minute to 8-minute matches that don't really have time to get going. I would love to see these guys have a longer match, but it was fun. Like you said, at a nice ending. I like the fact, because WCW got a bad rap for having false finishes, and not false finishes, but like shady endings, dusty finishes, I should say. But this was not a clean ending, but you got a pinfall, and that's all I can appreciate here. Randy Savage went over here.
You know what's so weird about that to me, though, is like that's 90% of the product we see in WWE today.
100%.
And it came from this.
Dude, the other thing, too, I remember watching Raw back in the day, and the biggest thing when people say, how do you watch WCW? They have commercials in the middle of their matches. And now that's all we see on Raw.
And everything, even AEW.
Yeah, well, yeah.
We're going picture, damn it. Let's go. Let's roll. It's wild to see that. And even like when we were watching Hangman versus Adam Cole, I was like, how dare you do a picture-in-picture in this? Yeah. Like, fucking don't do it. Put the commercials at the end. Give us a 10-minute grace period. Put all the commercials. Like, you can't do that for big matches, but I get the reasoning behind it, because it's money and all that shit.
You know how you escape? You guys, you know how you escape the commercials? You go in the Discord, you watch the AEW watch along with the icon, the Australian icon, Nick Storm, who's probably watching right now.
Goddamn.
And you watch with him, because he has the Fight TV link. We hang out in there every Wednesday. We check it out. So join the Discord, guys.
Yeah.
The next match we had, and you mentioned before, this was a dream match. Lord Steven Regal with Jeeves pinned Chris Benoit at 5:42 after Benoit missed a plancha to the floor and Regal rolled him back into the ring for the win. So
wild but beautiful.
Yeah, I agree.
You know what I mean? Like the plancha to the floor and then a roll back in the ring. You don't hear that any never.
Right.
If Ricochet did that on Raw, people would be like, he's overrated. He's too old. Get him out of the ring, you know? Like that's good booking.
It made sense. It was a technically sound match, and it felt like it went much longer than 5:42. I'm actually surprised seeing the notes that was 5:42. It made sense. And it just showed, I mean, William Regal was always teasing with being a main event guy. We saw him win the King of the Ring all these years later in WWE. Yeah. He never quite could get there. We know the substance issues got in the way, but he's always been a very solid competitor. And even though he's doing this kind of cheesy Lord gimmick here, he still came across as a legitimate badass, in my opinion.
Nothing worse than he's a man. He's a working man.
I agree.
Okay. So I agree. This was the brighter side of his
looking like a Revolutionary War British guy. Like he's a legitimate tough guy. Like come out
like that old dude, Cody Rhodes.
Yeah, exactly. You're right.
But it works.
So following this match, we talked about the guns, with the whatever, being announced. This started with the low blows at WWF. Results are being revealed on WCW TV. Gene Okerlund conducted an in-ring interview with Pillman, Benoit, and Anderson, in which Pillman dressed down Benoit and Anderson for losing their matches days after Ric Flair won the WCW World title. Moments later, Arn Anderson told Pillman he was starting fights with the Horsemen and they didn't need to be fighting. Kevin Sullivan, the Zodiac, the Giant, and Jimmy Hart then appeared in the aisle, and the Giant and Hart are holding others back from fighting the Horsemen. So a lot going on here. This was like a very AEW segment. They fit a whole bunch of guys in a tight little package. And I don't know, I kind of liked it. It was cool. I hate the Zodiac. The Brutus Beefcake crap with Zodiac is horrible.
Very fitting. I agree with you more on this. It's like an AEW. This is like Best Friends versus 2.0, and they're just making everybody get screen time. But I popped really hard when the Zodiac came out. And I hate Brutus Barber Beefcake.
Cool figure, though. They came out with a cool Zodiac figure a couple years ago. So awesome figure. But what was he thinking with that gimmick, dude? I know you want to get farther away from being a barber, but the Zodiac gimmick just never worked for me. Like it's still Beefcake underneath the makeup. Like
Beefcake's biggest change will come in the next year or two when he was the disciple, because it took me until like 2006 to figure out that Brutus the Barber Beefcake was the disciple. I had no fucking clue, and I was like, "What?" I was like, "You're this guy, the guy that comes out with the fucking clippers. He's the disciple," and it was mind-boggling to me. But it was a good step in the right direction. I love the Giant. I thought they booked the Giant so goddamn well in WCW.
He was so young too. He was so young. So young. I mean, was he 24 at this point?
Yeah, but you get listen, Mean Gene Okerlund here, and we're with the son of the Andre the Giant, and you're like, I believe every fucking word he's saying. He's Mean Gene. Why would he stare us wrong? It was wild.
Well, that's the value you get by taking the voice of WWF and bringing him over to WCW. It's like, why 100%. Would he lie? He spent time with Andre.
100%.
So moving on to the next match, you have Sting and Lex Luger defeating the Super Assassins, which if you guys don't remember, it's Warlord and the Barbarian. They had Colonel Rob Parker at the side. This went 5 minutes and 52 seconds. Sting put Barbarian in the Scorpion Deathlock as Luger put the Warlord in a torture rack. Cool ending. Awesome to have seen Luger and Sting tagging here. I love them as a team.
I miss the torture rack being a big deal.
Heart and soul of WCW Sting. And like all this time ago, I mean, he's still going today. We saw him on Dynamite with that crazy spot. I know he
takes Sting's the chair shot.
Yeah.
Undertaker's up out of it. Jumps off a balcony like New Jack. Sting is the true GOAT of pro wrestling, man. 63 years old. Still running wild.
And not embarrassing himself. He's going out there and being the highlight of a lot of shows. It's like the perfect trip down out into pasture, whatever you want to say it. Like it's the final chapter, a nice little bow wrapping on his career. And it's been goddamn fun. It's been so much fun.
It's been so good. Quick segue. Do you remember when Hogan fought Flair in TNA?
Oh, yeah.
How embarrassing was that?
So embarrassing.
Hogan couldn't lift his leg up for the big boot.
It was
like a medium boot.
It was almost as embarrassing as the Halloween Havoc match with Warrior and Hogan, but I still think that's the most embarrassing
I still
match.
love Warrior.
Wow, I hope we get to 1998 and talk about
brother,
all
we're
things
getting there.
WCW.
Yeah, no, but it was just, I remember when Hogan was fucked up and like he had just had the back surgery and they're like, throw him in the ring with Flair.
Dude,
and TNA was expecting it. Yeah, it was wild.
We will certainly not be doing TNA just shots of nostalgia because it's like taking shots of the liquor that you just can't afford. It's just
it's taking
shots of motor oil.
That's the mat at the end of the night at the bar where they pour all the liquor into it.
Yeah,
you're like, oh god,
mystery jungle juice. That's impact right there. Yep. You take that. There's some of the whatever, like the cleaning product on the rag. You put that in there too. You might get drunk, you might die, you don't know. So that's what Impact was back in the day.
Always worth it, regardless.
Exactly. So before we get to the main event, Bobby Heenan, which again, they show him a lot during the show, and just having him on the announce crew is a breath of fresh air. It just shows you. I love Excalibur, I love Tony Schiavone, but watching the WWE product with the announcing, the art is long gone from what Bobby Heenan was doing at this moment, and I think he'd be embarrassed to see what wrestling announcers have been doing, especially in WWE. I don't want to rip on the AEW announcers because they are from a different cloth with Schiavone.
For sure.
But I think Heenan, it was just really nice to hear him back on commentary because I still think he's one of the GOATs.
I love him throwing random improv and stand-up lines at Steve McMichael and Tony Schiavone. Like, oh man, your face looks like a fucking brick wall. You know, like it's just silly shit like that really adds to the fun because you're like, oh, these guys are just talking shit to each other and enjoying it. Like that's how I feel about it. I thought Bobby Heenan was the last of a dying breed, as well as Mean Gene Okerlund. No shitting on anybody else, but they were still trying to get their shit in.
Absolutely. You don't see that a lot. Today it's all about advertisements and talking about promos and not wrestling promos, but promos going on the show. It's more about the business side. And Heenan had the spirit of, let's just tell the story about what's going on in the ring. And I can get a guy over by, think about 1992. It's a masterful job of just getting a guy. Not that Ric Flair needed help, but it made the moment feel even bigger because he got It's Not Fair to Flair over, and he felt it building and crescendoing towards the apex of the night. It's all because you have Heenan on commentary building it there. It wouldn't be the same if you watch it with somebody else, Michael Cole or who else, like Heenan.
1,000%. Yeah.
So just want to mention that. I'm sure we'll mention a lot with Heenan, but let's talk about the main event. This probably should have been the main event at WrestleMania 8. It never happened. Instead, we got Ric Flair versus Savage at WrestleMania 8, and then we had Hulk Hogan versus Sid Justice. I think they experimented with this match on house shows. It didn't get a good reaction from the crowds. Yeah. And ultimately, it was one of those lost matches that got sort of passed us by. We got it a few times in WCW, and this, I believe, was the first, right?
I believe so.
So this was for the WCW Championship on Nitro, giving away a premiere. And this is what they did a lot. And if you read the book by Brian Alvarez, Death of WCW, he does talk about how eventually you get to a point, if you're giving away these big main events, why would people buy the pay-per-views? It's hard to top them. And they were chasing those ratings. And eventually you kind of book yourself in a corner where you can't do anything bigger than what you've done the week before. Yeah. I'm not saying this is the biggest thing that ever happened on Nitro because we saw bigger things happen, but Hogan versus Ric Flair probably should have been saved for the pay-per-view coming up in February, wouldn't you say? I
would agree 100%. But I mean, it was still cool to see it on TV, but I think it was a weird move, especially at the time.
Yeah, so with this ended in DQ when Hogan knocked down the interfering Arn Anderson and pulled Anderson's foreign object out of his trunk. So again, we see the Glock come out of Anderson's trunk. And then Hogan knocked an interfering Jimmy Hart off the apron. So classic WCW Nitro schmaz that we see at the end. And I hated endings like this as a kid. It always turned me off. I hate DQ finishes. I love that AEW doesn't lean into it, but this was commonplace. This was whoever was booking at the time felt like it got the two guys where you need to be storytelling wise with DQs, because you could advertise these big matches by not having anyone lose. And that's to me, it's lazy booking. It's worse than 50-50 booking. It is it's lazy because like take the time to tell the story and you can have either one of these guys win. And we've seen in losing efforts, guys can look much stronger than even if they are in a winning effort. Look at Wheeler Yuta and look at Stone Cold losing to Bret Hart. It's possible to do. You just have to be creative. Like it's so lazy to do the DQ. And it actually it pissed me off to see the DQ here. I'm going to be honest with you.
You know what? It was a different time. That's how I feel about it. They just didn't know any better, and they were just trying to make it right for the fans, and they didn't know any better. Bischoff is obviously a crowd pleaser. He's that guy. It's like, oh, we'll make it happen right here, live on Nitro. And I think it would have been different if we were 10 years removed from it. Yeah. But I think it was the best we could do at the time. Especially coming off of WWE shit. So
yeah,
it was weird. I still think I would have preferred it to be on a pay-per-view. I would have preferred it to be more of a longer match, not
7 minutes 55 seconds. Not what you want from the two of these guys.
No, not at all, and not that you want out of anybody. Let's, but still, I think it was good at the time, but it could have been better. No harm, no foul, but maybe worked a little bit harder at it.
So it's important for us to talk about what happened at the end of the match because it builds us to next week's Nitro. So we had the Giant appeared as Hogan and Flair, Anderson and Benoit were all battling in the ring. Pillman was begging off. Giant attempted to assault them with a stool. Randy Savage came out and grabbed the stool away and helped clear the ring moments later.
Yeah.
Again, we see Zodiac. We see Kevin Sullivan. And Gene Okerlund conducted an in-ring interview with Hogan and Savage in which Hogan challenged Flair and Anderson to a tag match next week, which we will talk about in 1 second. And Savage alluded to having a secret weapon in their arsenal, and Hogan was vehemently booed during this segment. So it was a little dull on the Nitro broadcast where I watched it, but they didn't edit it out. I mean, he was being booed, and people were not liking what he was doing. It was quite obvious.
Big kudos to WWE for not editing shit out. You know what I mean? Like, if we were doing an ECW review right now, we would have so much edit.
Yeah,
but they kind of let the WCW Monday Night Wars kind of flow through, which is a huge. I mean, if I was the guy that lost the Civil War, I would be fighting to make my shit more prominent. You know what I mean? Like, and not supporting the Civil War whatsoever. I'm just using this example. But I think Vince did a good job handling how well they portray everything that happened with WCW throughout the years.
Yeah, I mean, history is written by the winners, and WWF are the winners. Like, WWE won the Monday Night Wars, and they have the ability to tell the story how they want to. And from what I can understand, I mean, you watched it live. I was more of a WWF guy at the time.
Yeah.
They told the story accurately. I felt like we did see what was airing live on TNT.
100%. I felt it felt minus music changes. I felt it was natural. It was exactly what it was supposed to be for the time. And I've said the story a million times over. I used to go to my grandma's house and watch Nitro at least the first hour for the most part through. And this probably changed in like 97, 98 more so, but like Nitro is where we were going with it. That's what we did. We would watch Nitro, eat popcorn, hang out, have some fucking sodas, and just enjoy yourself.
It sounds like an amazing time, and it's honestly, to go back as a kid and watch wrestling like this, it would, I mean, to watch wrestling today as a kid would be a lot of fun because I think we have a lot of options. I mean, there's so many. I don't think I would have left my house if I had the ability to watch the WWE Network or Peacock, because I used to just like rent tapes from Mr. Video, which is a place in Oakdale, which is near my house. To me, as a kid, it's like so much to consume, and it's cool to go back and look at this with adult eyes, with everything we know, how it unfolded. And
100%.
Just to kind of put a bow on this first Nitro that we watched, I thought it was a lot of fun. Like, I didn't like the main event end, but it was Ric Flair versus Hulk Hogan on Nitro live. Like, they gave us everything they got. It wasn't like,
and then some. Yeah.
It wasn't like the old school WWF primetime shows where you get Hogan versus some local guy where you get to see Hogan get his shit in. Like, no, they went out there and they gave you them. I mean, you saw the whole card stack. We got Regal, Benoit, Hogan, Flair, Savage was involved here.
But that's the thing. Like it was
stacked card.
It was not only stacked, but it was different for what we now know as the last hour of Raw, or even the last hour of AEW. It's like we had prominent names and big storylines doing good shit, and it was fun and it was enjoyable. And like, I remember texting you the picture of me watching it at like 2 a.m. the other night, and I was like, look, I'm watching. we're getting ready to roll. I had a great time watching this, including the Benoit William Regal match. Like, everything held up very well. It's not shit,
Yeah, there were some things on this card that probably wouldn't hold up well in today's wrestling, but Regal and Benoit definitely did. You could put them on an AEW show. Like you said, put some of these guys, like if you just take them at this age, how they were functioning at this level with Savage and whatever, and put them on a GCW card, people would mark out. I mean,
this would be your shit right now.
It'd be amazing. But are you ready to move on to January 8th, 1996?
I'm ready, brother.
Pop in the DeLorean. Let's go a week.
Yeah, brother.
As we see the scroll change a little bit, the results on the bottom. Continue to get your fix here. Before we go into the results, Vince McMahon's second shot at WCW on the January 8th version of Raw was a canon, bringing up the issue of anabolic steroids and testing in Billionaire Ted's Wrestling War Room, which made an appearance again. The skit made a strong implication that wrestlers like Hogan, Savage, now that they are no longer in WWF, are back on steroids. In addition, McMahon claimed he had already written a letter to Turner, then issued a grandstand challenge to Turner immediately after the show and an online message to implement a stronger steroid policy. The message appeared to be carefully disguised as looking like a challenge, but may have been a legal defense against possible civil action regarding the piece, which less than subtly implied Hogan and Savage were doing steroids. So like we talked about before, kettle calling whatever black. I mean, the thing is, dude, you built your whole empire on the backs of guys who their lives ended way shorter than they should have because they were taking steroids to be the body guys that they probably shouldn't have been. We see guys like Eddie Guerrero, Chris Benoit, all these other guys. I mean, Ultimate Warrior ultimately died from steroids. I mean, the list goes on.
Yeah.
He turned a blind eye to it while guys, even like Hercules Hernandez, like you had to have a body that was beyond human in those 100%. 80s, early 90s WWF. So for him to make a big deal about it, dude, are you kidding me?
It was, again, weird times, pomps and circumstance. We were going through it when we were going through it. If you're telling me that Brett, Stone Cold, and HBK weren't doing the juice too, you're fucking lying to me. I think it was just, that's how it was. Even going into the baseball in later years, like 2001, Sammy Sosa, all that shit, Mark McGwire, that's when they first started calling it all out. Yeah. But I think steroids were just a huge part of business in general. And it's wild to think about them just shitting on one group of people and not the other.
Fair point, Tyson. The Bill and Ted phone booth is a good way of travel as well. we need Chad to put that noise into our transitions when we go from show to show. The other thing I want to mention here is Public Enemy, who left to start with WCW. We're supposed to debut on this Nitro, but there was a snowstorm in the Northeast. Ted Petty, who lives in New Jersey, was unable to make it for the scheduled Nitro debut, so they had to wait a week. So there you go. Yeah. Ready to move into January 8th?
Let's do it, brother.
All right, so we open with Chris Benoit with Brian Pillman taking on Alex Wright. He pinned him with a punch to the face and a dragging suplex at 6 minutes and 40 seconds. This match, dude, Benoit mugged him. Absolutely mugged him. He went out there and was every bit as aggressive as you remember him. And I felt bad for Alex Wright. I feel like he did something wrong here.
I've never been an Alex Wright fan, so I've always this and then this. I'm good with him getting mugged out there. And I listen, you're part of the program. You got to get with the people you're getting with. You got Benoit and Brian Pillman going against Alex Wright. Obviously, I'm saying Benoit and Pillman should have took the lead on this. I never cared about Alex Wright.
Me either. I mean, he got a huge prominent spot in WCW for years. I mean, they never gave up on him. They wanted him to get over, and he had some good work rate. It just, the character never worked for me. I agreed. It was just like, he never got reactions from the crowd. People just, he was the classic opening match for WCW. You're like, all right, some guy's going to wrestle Alex Wright, and then he could settle in for the night and get ready for the card. So
yeah.
Good match, though. Like, I love this showcase Benoit in a really good way. I like that he finished with the dragon suplex. It was cool to see him use a finisher like that. The other note after this match, Eric Bischoff made note of WWF raising their pay-per-view prices from $24.95 to $29.95. So another shot to just Vince McMahon and the crew.
What a steal that is in this day and age.
Yeah,
they're the GCW of pro wrestling at this point, because they're running $9.99 pay-per-views in where we're paying $69.99 for pay-per-view.
I mean, but also now you can get from Peacock, it's what, $4.99 a month, so you can watch every WWF pay-per-view and you have access to it. So pay-per-view, and like we talked about streaming, everything had changed over time to the point where I think no one could have foreseen that. I mean, we'd all be billionaires if we could have foreseen the future, but
how wild is it that we're paying cheaper for shit nowadays than we would have been back in '96? That's mind-boggling.
Well, I mean, if you go back and look at WrestleMania, though, you are kind of getting what you pay for, because that is littered with advertisements. It's like watching free TV.
Yeah.
Back in the day, it would never stand. You wouldn't have advertisements all over these pay-per-views because it was just like special event. It's not, there'd be no advertisements. I couldn't believe how many advertisements were on WrestleMania. So
premium, what do they call it now? A
premium live event.
Oh God, it's got no oomph to it.
All right, the next match here,
in the corner.
Dude. I mean, think about the work rate in this match too. We had Eddie Guerrero pinning Steven Regal with a backslide at 808.
Wow,
great match. Love to see. I love this era of Eddie here. I love the look. I love everything about Eddie.
100%.
Yeah, I thought it was a great match. And
just bear with me here. How awesome is it that William Regal is still on television in 2022? And he was wrestling Eddie Guerrero, one of our gods, one of the four pillars, one of the whatever you want to call him, in our day and age. I loved Eddie when I was growing up. I thought he was something spectacular. I grew to love Eddie even more, watching him over the years. And I thought he was one of the, obviously, as we all do, he's one of the best pro wrestlers in this industry. And it's wild to see that we're what, 24 years removed from this, and he's still being brought up. He was a mid-carder here, if he ever was such a thing, you know.
Yeah. So great match here. I loved it. Like, so far, so good with this. I felt like this Nitro encapsulated what I wanted from 1996 Nitro, and they were off to a hot start. During this match, Bischoff referred to the Royal Rumble as the Royal Fumble. And after the match, Regal attacked Guerrero to the floor. So just a little heel tactic by Regal after. Just stay and watch that, because he has some heel tendencies to him. The next match, we had Sting defeating Diamond Dallas Page via submission with the Scorpion Deathlock. 6 minutes and 20 seconds. He avoided a back suplex attempt. Crazy that this match was on here as well.
Yeah,
this was a freaking awesome match as well. I mean, Sting and DDP prior to his main event push, I think a year later.
Yeah,
awesome match.
100% agree with you. And how, like, I was texting you at the time, but I said how crazy that we have these 5-star match caliber people going against each other, and on a Monday Nitro, let alone, you know, this week I would have watched Regal and Benoit go at it on a pay-per-view 10 times out of 10 right now.
Oh yeah.
You know, Eddie Guerrero versus Regal. Jesus Christ, how crazy would that be now? And just thinking about the history there, thinking about the love, the push forward. I love every minute of it. It's so good.
So good.
Yeah.
So in the main, well, let me just talk about so after this match, it was announced that WCW Saturday Night the following weekend would include the second part of an interview with Mike Ditka and WCW World Champion Ric Flair versus Randy Savage. So Just to note, we are not covering WCW Saturday Night, but if you'd like to do your homework and go back and watch them,
I'm gonna go watch that.
Fill in the gaps. But we can talk all day about that.
Sting, what more can you want out of a fucking promo?
As a Chicago guy, I don't think anything else you could want, right?
I'm here for it, man.
So in the main event here, we have Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage defeating WCW World Champion Ric Flair and Arn Anderson. This match went about 15 minutes too long. I think it probably, like I was saying, many matches should have went longer, but this match probably should have capped out at 10 minutes.
I would have rather gotten an extra 5 out of Regal and Eddie than I would have this match. You know what I mean? Not in a bad way, but it was too much at the time, and imagine how much it would be now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. This is a Raw segment at this point.
100%. So the match ended, the boot to the face, leg drop, and immediately after the fall, we had Benoit, Pillman, Sullivan, Zodiac. They all came ringside and brawled each other while the Giant climbed into the ring, hit choke slams on both Hogan and Savage. Moments later, Zodiac climbed in the ring, held the Giant off from inflicting more punishment. During the match, it was announced that Savage would face Luger and Hogan would face Ming the following week in Miami. So obviously we'll talk about that on episode 2.
Yeah.
The one thing I did like is that we see the debuts of Giants, and not that the Giant was being debuted here. It's important to make him look strong. He looked like a monster. They present him in such a way that it's hard to make a guy as green as he is at this moment. He just feels like a main eventer, and you knew he was going to win the world title at some point very, very soon. For
me as a kid, the Giant was Andre. You know, it was you didn't think twice about it. And as silly as it sounds, they sold it fucking so well. This was one of the good reasons behind it. He just came in the ring, chokeslam both. Zodiac comes in, pushes him out of the ring. No, we can't do this to them. And you're like, oh shit, this guy means business. You know what I mean? Like, so you're feeling that shit 100%. I love it.
So, just some notes from the Wrestling Observer. The crowd appeared mixed on television. But Dave Meltzer, talking to those live, said it was decidedly pro Flair, and what sounded like a reaction for Hogan was actually cheers for Flair. People left the arena really mad because Flair does the exact same spots with Hogan every time out. And when you see it 3 out of 4 weeks, overexposure doesn't even begin to describe it. It wouldn't be so bad if the crowd was getting off on it, which they don't, or if the wrestling was stiff so there's believability, which it's anything but. It just gets sloppier, slower, and more transparent by the week. Before the show, they did a test of crowd reaction because they were going to have Hogan and Savage do an interview to air during Thunder in Paradise, but the crowd booed the mention of Hogan and Savage's name so much that they couldn't get any filming done and decided against it. Hogan sold even less than this week, including popping up immediately from Arn Anderson's Spinebuster, this time without even taking a 2 count before making the comeback. Yeah. What are your thoughts on that?
I get where Hogan's mindset was. I really do. I understand he was trying to become a star outside of the business and doing all this shit, but you can't bite the hand that feeds you. You know, Arn Anderson does a spine buster to you. You got to sell that shit. If The Rock does a people's elbow to you, it's a fucking elbow drop. It's nothing spectacular, but you got to sell that shit. You have to put the work back into what you brought you to the dance. Don't fuck with it, man.
I mean, especially since they're doing the skits on Raw that are just saying the exact same things you're doing, and it just almost gives credence and like truth to what they're saying, even though it's not entirely true. People that watch that are frustrated with Hogan be like, the guy's not good for the business. He's washed up or whatever. I think the face turn couldn't end fast enough. I think like the ship had sailed. Clearly the wrestling audience had changed. Yeah. And I understand why they didn't do it immediately and why they were so hesitant. They waited till the summer. But the writing was on the wall. They like either had to do it or just, I don't know, put Hogan like elsewhere, or like make him sit on the bench for a bit and come back later. Cause clearly getting him over as that super face, you know, the superstar that WWF wanted wasn't the guy you're getting in WCW.
I 100% agree with you. I think no matter what, eventually what we see in the future is going to happen. But I don't know, man. I think they were still trying to milk a lot of the main event potential out of Hulkamania as opposed to Hogan the person. Yeah, this is a Bischoff problem, not a Hulk Hogan problem. You know what I mean? Like I think this especially with this main event, 15 minutes too long. I think it was a Bischoff problem. Like, oh, Hogan's gonna be great. He's gonna put over. He's gonna sell shirts. Blah blah. I don't know, man. I've met Hogan several times, and I just don't see him as the guy that's like, brother, I gotta be in the main event. I have to do what I gotta do, and I'm gonna win after a 15-minute match, brother. This is what we're gonna do, brother. And like, I just don't.
Well, I think the way the roster was constructed, it just felt like they had to. It was almost like it wasn't a locker room that was conducive to letting guys work together. It was almost like cutthroat with the old school mentality of just get your own in. If you don't chop the legs out from someone underneath you, you're not going to get over. And that mindset is so antiquated. And clearly things have changed since then, because like the most popular guys that have longevity in the business are guys that give back and have the ability to put other guys over. So I understand where they're coming from, because you only have so many years to make your money and, you know, get in there. And like Hogan had his own intentions in mind. He wanted to be that superstar. Probably he had his mindset that he wanted to be The Rock, who The Rock is today, you know, in all the movies, and be a huge movie star. Listen. And it just never got to that point for Hogan, because I think he was so wrestling, and Rock has become more than that. Like Rock is like, yeah.
If you're telling me Three Ninjas on Magic Mountain made more money than Tooth Fairy, you are fucking fooling me.
Quality of movie aside for The Rock, I mean, the guy is the highest paid actor in the world, and it's crazy to believe. Like, it's not just Dwayne Johnson and the Mummy anymore. It's Dwayne Johnson.
No, it's
not. It's crazy. So Hogan started to blaze the path. It wasn't quite the same path Rock took, but Rock took it up the mountain. Now he set up camp there and living there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's like saying Sylvester Stallone paved the way for Arnold Schwarzenegger, though.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
You know, like they're both great in their own manners, but they did not do anything more for each other than they did for themselves. It's just evolution.
Yeah,
as Triple H would say, it's evolution, brother. But I think that's where we are. Yeah, it's wild.
The thing though about Hogan is that the best things happen organically, and we watched the NWO stuff happen organically. We know he wasn't the intended third man. He wound up being the third man, and it's like wrestling wouldn't be the same if he decided to stick this out and do the Cody Rhodes approach and say, you know what, I refuse. I'm not turning heel. I'm not listening to the audience. I'm just going to ride this out because that's my gimmick. I'm going to be the good guy, the vitamins and prayers, all that. He was willing to take a risk. So as much shit as people want to give Hogan for the character and the guy he is, he took a risk with his bread and butter, like the Hogan character. That's what if it failed, it would have been, you know, if he became the Zodiac like that, it would not have worked out well for Hogan.
No. And you know what? I'll give Hogan all the props too, because if it wasn't for the way Hogan handled business, I don't think we would see Cody Rhodes going back to WWE.
Right.
I don't think we would see this babyface run from Cody, where he's giving his belts to kids on their birthday and doing all this stuff like that. That's what AEW is pushing him against, and not against AEW on any matters. It's the fan base and everything, but Cody's time there as a babyface was over. So you have one option, and it's to go to WWE and do your thing, get your title, or don't go at all and become the bad guy. And like, what do you do when you're the bad guy? You can enjoy the House of Black. Like, nobody wants to see Cody in the House of Black. Cody did not have a place in WWE at this point.
You mean in AEW?
Much like Hulk Hogan. Well, yeah, it was much like Hulk Hogan did not have a place in WWF.
Right.
It was done and over with. You can't overstay your welcome.
I agree. The only thing I want to correct you on, and if you're going to mention Triple H, you have to say Terror Rising, because we're living in the WCW world here.
All right, brother. Terror Rising. He's the game. No, but I really feel like there's a lot of give and take with wrestling, especially in this generation, which we're covering right now. But a lot of the give and take doesn't go as proclaimed as what happened. Right. So like Scott Hall, Kevin Nash leaving WWF eventually, maybe. We don't know. We're not there yet, but
we don't know.
Yeah, I have no idea, but I'm just saying if it does happen, it had to happen.
Right.
And I think just as much as Cody leaving AEW had to happen, I think there's a very good similarity to it, even though it's not as impactful as it was, because it's not like, you know who I am, but you don't know why I'm here. It's you're still freaking the fuck out because you're like, the music, the pyro, the package of Cody Rhodes is in WWE now, but we were so used to it in AEW for the last 3 years that it's like it's a little uncomfortable, and like that's what the Outsiders did for WCW. That's what
right.
We can name a million turns over. That's what Hogan and Kevin Nash and Scott Hall did for WWE in 2002. It was we were like, what's going on? And that's the best time to be a fan.
Very, 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 very well said. I think you can't say it any better. So that closes the 2 Nitros we watched. And again, like I said, we're going to put in some videos, so there'll be nice segments in there, but we're going to get it in there. We got to get the Too Bad Chads to create us some stuff in here, brother. So next segment is called The Chaser. And every week we will pick our favorite part of the 2 nights of Nitro. I'll let you start, Mike Belcaster. Tell me your choice, whether it be match or segment, and why.
This was such a hard thing to come to. Like I said, we're seeing legendary 10 out of 10. This is your New Japan AEW's matches put together. But for me, William Regal and Chris Benoit was my standout from this whole entire 2 episodes. I think there was a technicality to it, a good storytelling to it. I thought both of them sold so well. And it ills me to say that Chris Benoit is part of this segment because he's a monster in the long run. But God damn, he was a monster in the ring this week, and I'm here for it.
100%. And you know what? That was a close second for me. I'm going to go with Eddie Guerrero versus Steven Regal. The match went 8 minutes. I thought it was perfect. It was 8 minutes long. Finished with a backslide. I'm a sucker for matches ending with these pinfalls, like similar to the Bret Hart matches that end in like these like shock pinfalls. Some of normal moves and giving legitimacy to a backslide, as you would say. I'm here for that. So that was my definite match of the week.
I love it.
I'm looking forward to next week. I thought a low point for me had to be the DQ finish between Flair and Hogan in the first night. Yeah. Because you know what? You've been waiting so long for this match, and like you advertise it. It's the first Nitro of the year, set a good tone, and it's a DQ. And you know what? Maybe people are excited, but leaving the show that night, you can't be happy with seeing a DQ finish.
No, not absolutely. And if I was a kid whose dad bought tickets to the show, I would be pissed. And I've gone to my fair share of Nitros here in Chicago, but like I'm not happy about it. And brother, I felt like they did the pay-per-view spot a few weeks later, didn't they?
We will get to that. We won't talk about it.
I'm not saying we're there, but I'm just saying they eventually did repay it. So it wasn't like the worst case scenario.
100%. And but I said, if you want them to have interactions together, just put them in a tag match against each other. Have Arn and Rick tag together
100%.
And have whatever Hogan tag with at the time is Macho and him weren't together yet, but
brother,
do it there. Do it at the beginning of the show. Do the segment and put Macho and Hogan in the main event as a tag team. Like, why not?
Bring out Horace a few years later or a few years earlier. Let's make it happen.
What's up, Freems?
Freems, my brother, man, how's it going?
So with that being said, let's go to closing the tab. And this week, this is just our final wrap up. This will get our shit in, Mike Belcaster. So just to be clear, next week's show will be April 29th, 2022. We'll be talking all about WCW Nitro from January 15th, 1996 and January 22nd, 1996. And of course, we'll be getting ready for Super Bowl VI, which happens on February 11th, 1996. Just to let you guys know, episode 3 will cover the 22nd edition of Nitro, which is January 29th, 1996, and the February 5th edition of Nitro, 1996. And that's the go-home show before Super Brawl 6. On episode 4, we will be talking about Super Brawl 6, which happens on the 11th, and then February 12th, 1996, which is the show following Super Brawl. So we're off to the races here, Mike Belcaster, getting our 1996 in. This was a freaking blast. I had a great time talking about WCW with you.
I had a great time just you screen caps of me watching WCW, let alone getting to the space. I think this might become one of the best things we're doing on the tavern. I'm loving it. I'm here for it. Acefield, do you know that Freems has a WCW tattoo?
I do not, but I do have a Golden Era WWF tattoo myself, so we should compare one day.
I'm naked here. I feel like Midian. I don't know what to think about myself.
It's on my legs. So I'm not going to stand up on my computer chair and show you guys.
You're okay, brother.
When I come to Chicago, Belcaster, I'll show you live and in person.
Oh yeah, that's a good mentality, brother. Yeah.
So, Mike Belcaster, tell everybody where you can be found on social media and what you're up to on the tavern.
Yeah, I'm Macho Man Mike Belcaster. I'm here on the tavern every single podcast, basically. I'm on, we got Fig Night. We have the GCW show. We have the sessions where I'm all over the board. Your Monday, your Tuesday, your Wednesday. I do the All Elite wrap-up on Friday. I'm here for the sessions. I'm here for now the fucking WCW show. Shot of nostalgia. You're living it, brother. But listen, I'm here to help the tavern up. I'm here to be the man that is the man with the plan, brother. And if you ain't excited for that, I'm going to tell you to snap into a Slim Jim and just hang out. But listen, look, here's our weekly YouTube content. Everything's free here at the tavern. You guys don't gotta pay a Patreon. You don't gotta pay for anything. You got the fucking GCW show. You got Fig Night. You got the Raw Down, which is everything WWE exclusive for the Turnbuckle Tavern. So you're getting J-Bone. You're getting Young Anthony. You're getting the MVP Marco, man. They're all telling you about what's going down on the Raw and the SmackDown. You got me and Freems and the OG Fig Kid on the All Elite wrap up. You got me in the OG Fig Kid on Sessions. You got me in Acefield Retro right here live in person, brother. Yeah. Like the Macho Man and Elizabeth. We're hanging out and enjoying our time watching the WCW trip. But we're here, man. And go like, subscribe, follow, share, leave a high five, leave a 5-star review. Hit me up if you leave a 5-star. I don't know why I'm blurry. That is terrible. I look like I'm drunk. Leave a 5-star review because I will send you some free stickers, and those are really good stickers. Ace, send me your address so I can send you some fucking things. We got the Honor Society. We have everything that you could possibly imagine underneath the wrestling belt. Going down right here in the pro wrestling business.
You're damn right, Freems. You're damn right.
Yeah.
So you guys can find me at Acefield Retro on Instagram. Like you guys said, I'm on the Honor Society. I'm also filling in whenever I can. You find me on the debate sometimes. Watch the 2 appearances I did on the debate. Just saying, great conversations always happening everywhere on the tavern. I'll be filling in on the fucking GCW show on Monday with Mike Belcaster. So we'll be talking about the whole weekend of GCW. So much good wrestling to talk about. This was so much fun. We will be back next week talking all things WCW Nitro in our journey through 1996. And I can't wait to take the trip with you guys. So Mike Belcaster, likewise. For me, I'm the Ace. That's Mike Belcaster. And we'll see you next week. Enjoy your shot of nostalgia.